travelers, and welcome to another episode of Verta Stars Podcast fourth season. My loyal listeners, thank you for continued support. Enjoy this amazing interview because Dale Jones boards the mothership, discusses stand-up specials. Now, come on board as we go traversing the stars. Hello, Mr. Jones. Thank you for coming to Verta Stars Podcast.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So my pleasure. Like I said, I loved your watching your stand-up. So I definitely had you have you on my show. I always start a question of inspiration. So inspire your love for stand-up and who your earliest influences.
Earliest influence, probably Looney Tunes would be my earliest influence, because I'm so tied into goofy and silly. And then from there, it probably went to probably Abbott and Costello and Jerry Lewis movies and stuff like that. Just silly stuff. I was drawn to anything that was silly. And then of course, it went to Steve Martin. And then from there to Robin, and then on to Richard Pryor, and it just went. So I pull from anything if I find it funny, I start to pull from it. I love Stephen Wright and Rodney Dangerfield, so I love the goofy one-liners and the quick, and just mix it all together. And that's how I kind of got my style added in with the physical, you know.
It's kind of funny when I was putting together the questions for the interview, and I was thinking about your style. The first comedian that popped in my brain was Robin Williams-esque, and there's I don't know if it's just your skill or it's just how you do things, but you seem to be almost ad-libbing on some level the routine, but I know a lot of it's not, but it just has that rapid fire feel to it.
Yeah, when I started out, they always told me that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed not the rapid fire, but it's supposed to look like it's coming off the top of your head.
Mm.
And it's supposed to look like that. So I work really hard at making everything look like it's ad lib, to the point that they don't know when I'm ad libbing and when I'm not. And then I and then I record all my shows, and then that way I can pick out what I have ad libbed, which is probably 5% every show I ad lib probably. Um, my favorite part is in between the jokes. That's my favorite part, because that's where I can play and act like a moron, and more than normal. And then I can go back and do the next joke and touch base. You know what I mean? So but I never got compared to Robin until he died. Before that, I never heard any Robin stuff at all. I heard what I hear, Jim Carrey, who never really even did stand up that much. He did some, but he was mostly, Living Color. I mean, I guess he did more than I knew about. I knew him from Living Color, so I was like, he's a comic.
But like I said, it's just there's such like Robin Williams' genius came from the fact that it just seemed to just explode out of him. And like I said, when I watch you, it can't like I said, there's a part of my brain that's going, he's just making this up as he goes. But not in a bad
Thank you.
way, but in a this guy
No,
is just
that's a great compliment. I thank you very much. That's what I want it to look like, and I'll take that comparison all day long. I can't fill his shoes, but I'll wear his flip flops.
so you are recording all your stand-up is getting recorded. Is something like you have set up in the back to someone who's there recording you?
I'm either doing it audio on my iPhone, or I've got a camera in the back doing it, and then I pull clips from that for social media and stuff. Go
So
ahead.
I mean, it's interesting. So when you're going back, you're watching your stand up. Are you able to appreciate it? Because funny thing, like when I edit my show, right? I always had the hardest time watching it because I think to myself like, oh man, what did I say this? My voice, and you get like all like self conscious about it all. Are you able to appreciate what you've done on stage when you're watching yourself, and when do you know, in your determination, when is it a good show?
Um, I'm the same way. I get all in my head, and I hate looking at myself, and I'm like, why does my hair look like that? And why does my face look that way? Something like that. So I have that same thing. I think every artist has that. I think it's a good show when I have a different level of good show than somebody else. Somebody else will think it's a really great show sitting out in the crowd, and I will think it's a great show when I hit all the things. But I could rearrange the act and get lost, and it not look nobody knows I'm lost. But in my head, I'm like, I screwed that up. But I have to tell myself the audience doesn't know that the A comes after B and B comes, they have no idea. that I've written it all out. I always write my set list out. Like this is one of my set lists. Like I'll write, I don't know if you can see that or not, but I'll every show I'll write a whole bunch of words down, and scribble it all. And I if I get it in that order, then I and they all laugh at it, then it's a good show.
I,
If
I
I
mean, you
get that, if I get lost and I screw that up, then I'm mad at myself.
have,
So
well, I mean, you have some go-tos in your show. Like you'll say like every so often you'll go into I'm trying to think of the exact phrase. You're allergic to glue is one that you'll repeat frequently. There's another one you have a couple of others
right.
in there as well. Are those like go-tos when you feel like you're trying to either figure out what you want to say or based on a reaction that you did or did not get, or is that something that you've written like at this moment in the show, I need to throw in this like a go-to phrase?
Um, it comes and goes. So I don't do that line every show. So sometimes I do it when somebody walks back into the room and I want to have a joke for them to sit down and go, "You haven't missed anything. My name's Dale, and I like to smell markers, or I like to lick batteries, or I bark at people's luggage." I've got all these lines that I do. Some of them are for when I'm lost, and I'll have a bit in my head, and then I'm screaming at myself in my brain the whole time, going, "You're almost done. What's next, you idiot? What's next? What's next? You didn't figure it out. Go to Plan B." And then other ones are complete savers. Like if something tanks, then I'll say I'm not allowed to vote, and I'll just go from there. And then I end up going back at those and going, "Well, why aren't you allowed to vote?" And then I end up writing those into bits. So yeah, there's always three or four different roads, so I'm not backed into a corner. Is kind of what I that's what I try to do.
So when you're so we'll go back a little bit to you developing your Dale Jones stand-up character individual. Is
Right.
this, I mean, do you view it as a character you created for stand-up? Is this you plus, obviously with addition to it? I mean, how do you kind of view your persona on stage?
Um, at first it was a safety net because if I bombed when I was an open micer, then they hated that guy. They didn't hate me, and I was okay, right? Because I'd never been on stage, I'd never done any performance, nothing. And then it became me when I was 12, and I channeled into that, and that's what I kind of held on to. And then I go on, and um, and the persona is also a lot of I love one-liners, and I
Hmm.
love silly, and I kind of and physical, and I tied that all together. And I used to be all physical. All the punchlines were physical when I started out. But then I would go do radio to promote the show, and the DJs would be like, "Well, I wish you could see this," because there would be no. So then I went back and thought, well, I need to write one-liners to go, and then accentuate it with the physical
Hmm.
stuff. So that's how that developed. And then I started studying Stephen Wright and Rodney Dangerfield and wrapping those together because I wanted the weird and the fast, you know.
Hmm.
And then I would add the physical on the end. So that's how that's kind of grown. But it's all me at 12. It's all me going up and trying to escape from whatever baloney I got going on in my life at the time. And I need to go up. People will come up and go, "I really needed that." And I say, "Me too." And they always think that's me, but I'm honestly being serious. That's the hour I get to shut down and just go outside and play.
Hmm. That's awesome.
And yeah, and that's the part that's what I love most about the job is I get to go up and just go out and hopefully everybody else has a good time too.
So when you were as you mentioning how you put together your act, you said 12 years old and Stephen Wright on these others. Part of that is also connected to figuring out what your voice is going to be as a comedian. The type of jokes you're going to tell, that things of that nature. Um, the jokes that you are writing and performing, are those jokes that you developed yourself, turned yourself into, or is this how your comedy in your brain is being written and you decided this is how I write, this is what I'm doing, or are you purposely creating a certain kind of joke because you want to be in this box versus a different box?
Um, well, my voice was through physical comedy. That's what I found out my voice was, and that's what I enjoyed. Um, the way I write, I don't write that way on purpose for that guy. I that's just how I write. That's just how I piece it together. And I usually end up coming with a punchline first. And my wife's a comedian also, and she's an excellent writer. And I will come to her and go, "Funnel cakes." I got to get to somehow about funnel cakes. And then she will help me write a setup. Or I'll have an idea and say, this is really funny, but I don't know how to get there. And she will help me piece that together. But I write the way I write. I don't, I'm not that meta that I'm like, well, I'm going to write this certain way for this character. And I mean, I wish I was that smart, but yeah, I just do. That's all I know to do is the way I do it.
And once again, hopefully, if you're watching this interview and talking to you, you check out your stand up if you're if you're a listener because it's a sight to see just you performing it and let's say the part of my brain because I think because you do it so naturally that wonders how much of this is actually written down and how much is this with the energy and the physicality just once again in the moment. So how much of when I see a joke online and your physicality online, how much of that is written down like I'm going to do this or write this as a full out joke? How much of it is being developed as you're thinking about it on stage?
It depends. I mean, if it's a new joke, there may be half of it that's being experimented with at the moment. And then you could see it 2 years later and it's a totally different bit, because I'm always, every night I go on stage, I'm trying to do something different, not the whole show, but there has to be this much that's different,
Hmm.
at least one line. um, the written part is, sometimes I'll go up and ad lib a premise, but for the most part, I've written down what I want to say and then I put it out there, and then I start listening to the crowd, and I start chopping out the dead wood and getting to the point as quick as possible, and going, this line doesn't work, this line doesn't work. As far as the physicality, usually I have one or maybe one physical bit that I know that's going to go in this joke, but the other, I just wing it. I'm not one of those guys that looks in the mirror and figures out what the physical is going to be. I just go up and I say, like, sometimes I don't even know what my face looks like until somebody videos it, and then I go, "Oh, that's what I'm doing." You know, I got a picture in my head, but that doesn't mean that's what I'm conveying. As long as they're laughing, I'll go with it, and then I try to repeat what they are laughing at, and try to add in some more salt and pepper. Is what I try to do.
I mean, this is one of the reasons I love talking to stand-ups because when you talk to a stand-up comedian, I mean, I think most people think of stand-up as like joke tellers, but you guys are writers. You guys are as much writers as any poet or anything, or lyricist or anything like that. I mean, you're actual writers, and in many ways, you have to be even more careful with what you write because the reaction has to be. But sort of like if you write something on a page, a poem, someone can be like, "All right, that's a weak line." You keep going, you read the poem. In a stand-up, you either get the reaction or you don't. And one thing I'm thinking about as well is when you're writing, you're obviously memorizing your whatever you wrote down. But when you're on stage, it has to sound as natural and off the cuff as humanly possible. How are you making sure that a line that you've been memorizing over and over again doesn't sound memorized or staged when you're actually on stage?
I think that just comes with experience. I just think you learn how to relive it and be. And I think that's, for me, that's where acting comes in. You
Mm,
know, like on Broadway, they do the same thing. They got to deliver that line. They got to nail it every night, And some nights I feel like I nail it, and some nights I don't. But I never try to call it in. I just, and if I do start the show where I'm not in the right attitude, somehow I will get into the mood,
mm.
halfway through. But yeah, getting back to that one thing, I can't tell a street joke to save my life. People will say, "Tell me a joke," and I'm like, "Hob hob, knock knock." You know, I'm horrible at street. Some comics street jokes all day long and do their regular act. I'm not that. I'm not that dude.
Yeah. It was like the idea of how do you, I guess, make something you've memorized feel look natural or and actually live too, because I would imagine too there's a potential for getting stale by repeating a certain joke because I mean there's a difference between being on like you're doing a show for YouTube or whatever and that's your joke you're gonna do and you're gonna move on because people are not seeing your joke every night you're doing a set multiple times and making it not look or feel stale must be almost as difficult as doing it the first time.
I think it is, but I only do stuff that I really enjoy. So I think I'm always having fun. And if I get sick of a joke, then I will rewrite it or I will figure out a different way to do it or dump it completely. So everything I'm trying to do on stage, I'm having fun with. Um, and I think that shows. And I think that makes it easier to be more in the moment. I'm
Mm.
also constantly watching the crowd too. So if somebody gets up and goes to the bathroom, I go, I'd leave. This is getting ridiculous. So I have these little things, and that's where I was telling you about when I play in between the jokes. That keeps me ramped up to go to the next one. So it just doesn't feel like I'm putting a needle on and going across because I
Mm.
can't I can't be that guy. I can't do that. Even when I do a TV spot, I'll end up doing something that I didn't plan on doing.
That's like must take a crazy level of multitasking because it kind of reminds me of and something that because I don't do these things, sort of like a singer who's also playing the guitar. It's like how are you playing the knowing the notes and singing the song at the same time? I couldn't do both at the same time.
I
But you're
can't do that either. I was a garage guitar player and
oh
I couldn't
really?
sing and tap my foot and strum to save my life. Yeah, so I don't get that either. But apparently I can do this.
Right,
That's
'cause
about all I can do.
well, you're analyzing a crowd and remembering your jokes and how you're going to handle all at the same time. And that's again a level of multitasking that I don't know if I could pull off.
Yeah. It's also treading water so you don't drown. You're doing a lot of this, and you're like, there's the shore, there's the boat, there's a shark. Oh my gosh. So I think it's a lot of survival mode. But especially when you start out. But yeah, I think I've talked to several comics about that. Your mind will be thinking about the joke you're doing, it'll be thinking about what joke is next. You're looking at the audience, you're paying attention to your time, and you're also thinking about, if you want to go see a movie afterwards. So there's always these, and I've talked to several comedians that have mentioned that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just that I don't know. I guess it starts out as sink or swim, and then after a while, you're like, okay, I'm safe because I've got these jokes that are home base,
Yeah.
and I'll be okay.
And I think the other thing that's incredible with you as well, and as we kind of hit on a little bit, the amount of energy you bring to the stage. You are not one of those comedians that's just walking back and forth. Some people have just the mic and they kind of do their joke, and they're kind of just pacing. It looks to me you're giving 100% of your entire energy on the stage at all times. And like my day job, I'm a teacher, okay? And that's
Okay.
still some level of performance. And I know damn well there's some days I'm going up in front of the kids and I'm just not feeling it that day. Like I don't want to do this shit. I'm not in the mood. And I must admit, it probably comes off that way to the students too, that sometimes I'm just not in the mood. But when you're watching you, you're always seem like you're present. Is there days where you don't feel it? And how do you bring that energy when you just don't have it or don't feel it? Or this is like the third show that night and you've kind of had it?
I it's definitely a switch, and it is, and I do give 100%, 110 or whatever, um, because I know they paid darn good money to see it. You know, um, there are nights I don't feel it. And I make myself feel it. I go through the motions until I get there.
Mm.
I just like I'm just gonna keep hammering. I'm not. I don't want them to walk away and go, well, that was all right. Which is part of the reason I do the physical and the facial expressions and the voice inflections and the jokes. And then there's other stuff, and it's a little too fast for them sometimes. And because they're hearing it for the first time, and I've heard it 9 million times. Because the line I used to say was, "I don't get the joke, but he looks funny." I was like, so I just try to throw the whole kitchen at them, and they're like, "Oh, well, we like the microwave on that show." You know what I mean? So it's just
Yeah.
constantly. I really enjoy that. I like very scattered. It looks like it's off the cuff. And I like character comedians too. That's why I love Bobcat and Gilbert and Emo and Howie and guys. Even Steve Martin was a character. So I kind of like that. And then Richard Pryor did characters, but he would come back to himself, and then he would do another character, go back and forth. Robin did that also, but I enjoy just giving them everything, and eventually I will start having fun because that's where the ad libbing in the middle of the joke comes in, and that's where I start playing, and then eventually I'll pull myself into it and go, "Come on, man! You used to drive a forklift. You're really going to be upset about that?
And I think
You're working 1 hour. Come on, Dale."
well, I mean, it's your humor. Like I said, I love and enjoyed your stand up. When you're a lot of your jokes too are also self-deprecating, right? Now, is it like when did you decide like how much of yourself you're going to give to a joke, and how much is that you're either going to make it clear that's the character, and how much are you going to be like this is me, and I'm kind of taking shots at myself on stage.
At the beginning, it was a lot of shots at myself on stage because I got picked on a lot when I was a kid, so I had the mentality that if I made fun of me first, nobody else could get there. Um, but now I try to do smart jokes in a stupid way is what I've been trying to do, and to the point to where the crowd doesn't even know that I realize it's a smart joke or something. You know what I mean? There's
Yeah,
always this inside stuff that I'm trying to do. Oh, it's all me. It's all me. It's delivered through the character, but it's all every one of my jokes starts out with something real.
yeah.
And then I go from there and I have no problem putting myself down. I'm not up there to look smart. I'm not up there to say I'm better than anybody else. I'm up there to be at an even keel or maybe even a couple of steps below. And I have no problem doing that at all. I'm that way in my normal life. That doesn't bother me. I think I'm it used to, but now that I'm doing it through therapy, I'm okay with me. And now I'll just stand on stage and say, I don't know what's wrong with me, but it's paying the bill, so I ain't fixing it. You
Well,
know,
there's a joke that you do, and I'm gonna butcher it. So I don't know if you want to take over for me,
sure.
but I'm gonna say kind of give away the joke's a little bit long, but I'm gonna read it so the listeners know what I'm talking about, and then I want to talk to you about it. Okay?
Okay.
So it's gonna be butchered because I'm reading it instead of
This
actually.
is a first. I've never had this done. This is
All
all
right.
I'm excited now.
So this is one of my favorite jokes you had on your show. This is from Drunk Tank. Okay. Like I said, I cut a little bit because I'm copying word for word from what you're saying. What else happens when you stop drinking whiskey every day is that you start making better decisions. The problem with that is that if you are a comedian, that ain't no good. No one wants to hear about the night I went to bed early and woke up refreshed. You want to hear about the story that makes you feel better about you. Now, I think that's a wonderful joke because not only is it just funny as hell, but it kind of opens the door to the life of a comedian. Like you can't just be like, yeah, everything's going good and everything's good. I had a good day today. That's not really a joke. It's kind of the bad that works, and then the idea behind it too, where the audience feels better about themselves hearing your shitty day
Right.
in a joke.
Right.
You kind of go into it a little bit.
And people love negative. They do, man. People are mark you know it. People will write a bad review all day long. If they had to write good reviews, they'd write none.
Right.
Uh, and it's true. That whole thing. And I was struggling with alcohol at that point, and that was all. That was not really character driven. There, that was the truth.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to hear about the day I went to bed early and woke up refreshed. They want to hear this, the story. And then I believe it went into. There's a couple of different versions of that. I don't know which one you're looking at. One of them was about me passed out in the refrigerator, and which actually happened. I came home. That was high school days, but I slammed those together and I woke up and I was passed out in the fridge. My dad caught me asleep with my head on the thing. But
Nice.
not proud of that, but it happened. Um, yeah. So yeah, a lot of it is a truth and then the imagination kicks in.
Hmm. So how, I mean, is that the joke itself feels like a wonderful insight into the relation between the comedian and the audience. Because I think you kind of said it yourself is that the healing properties of comedy, right? Both for them and for you. So are you thinking about your comedy? Like, and are you actually thinking about it as a way of healing the audience by listening to your shit day, makes them feel better about their shit day? Or is it, and how much of that is your healing so that you get to say it out and get it out there and get the laugh and and how that kind of helps you as well?
Um, I don't really go up there to heal. Uh, I never thought about it. It does help them, but that was never my go to. It was completely therapeutic for me and getting it out there and reaching down and grabbing some stuff instead of writing one-liners like, you know, spooning a homeless guy or something like that, you know, and trying to get this a little bit of meat and some goofy with it, you know. But what I found as I went along that journey is that other people were coming up and going, "Hey, that really helped me," and da 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 da,
Mm.
and it you know it helped me just forget about my problems for an hour or something like that, or I can relate to that and stuff. And I'm not that forward thinking where I was like, I'm gonna help the guy in the third row, you know.
Right.
But I'm glad it did help. But it was completely me coming out of therapy and writing down what I had talked about and was like, hey, how can I make this funny? And me saying it on stage, which you're exactly right. I mean, just saying it and then getting validation through laughter. It's like, I'm going to be all right. I'm okay. You know, and then but my shows have become this therapy thing where people come up and say that. I never expected that, but I
Mm.
love it. I love helping. That's why when people say I needed that and I say me too, they don't, they're like, what?
Right, right.
It's like, no, I'm really pretty screwed up. I'm trying to go through this and I'm just having to get paid while I'm up there going through my stuff.
Is there a concern that you get too well and suddenly you can't do the same jokes because your life is going too well and you've been successful now? It's like, oh, fuck, I really got to figure out somehow to screw this all up to keep this thing rolling.
There has been a fear with that. And there's been a fear with like, hey, people say, are you ADHD? And I go, I don't know. I've been diagnosed. I'm afraid to because I don't want, you know, there's been times where people in the early days, they were trying to put me on Zoloft and Wellbutrin and all that. And I was like, nah, screw it on my act. I'll just go do this and I'll do push-ups and I'll get my serotonin that way. And I'll figure out something else. I'll figure out something else because this is working. You know, I mean, obviously, if I was hanging off a cliff and going, I'm going to jump, then I would think something differently. But I think
But when you
I
create a
think
joke
I'm
out of
holding
that,
on enough, huh?
well, you have created a joke out of that first before you decide to solve the problem. You're like, you know what? This is a great bit I have right here. I'm gonna keep running with
Say,
it.
but first, write this down,
Right.
and then you can jump.
Right.
um, I got a pretty good life, but I don't try to fix it completely. I want it to be a little screwed up. Plus, I'm enjoying it. If I was, I mean, after COVID, I was completely miserable, and because I didn't have any work, and I thought, well, I'm not important if I don't have any work, because that was my only outlet. I don't have other comedians are blessed to having hobbies, and I don't. Comics go, what else do you do? And I go, this, and they go, come on. I'm like, that's all I'm really good at. so so after that, I did some therapy and stuff, but it was only just to get back to this, you know.
Mm.
But I think just having an outlet and being able to talk about my psychobabble helps me enough.
Well,
And
one
then,
well, one thing that you're also doing, obviously successfully, is that I feel like in the over the last maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years, probably 5 years, as a comedian, you're just as much a social media influencer type, Reels, TikTok kind of thing as you are a live, on stage comedian. So, how much of your time is spent thinking about your social media profile that's getting these people to find who you are and finding you?
my son, that's his job. So I hired him. He does my social media, and I go through all the clips with him that he puts on, and we decide, and then that makes me write more because I don't want to repeat what I'm putting out there. Sometimes I don't have a choice because you run out of material when you can't write fast enough eventually.
Yeah.
Um, Luckily, I had 3 years of DVDs, 30 years of DVDs of material that I could pull from, and those three DVDs that are online, and you can cut those all into clips and repeat them as you get new fans. Um, but social media is very important. That's what gets the people coming to the shows. That's what's kind of helped me bump up to the even where you saw me. I mean, I didn't have the recognition I do now 5 years ago.
Mm.
You know, I came out. I wasn't on TikTok or anything during COVID. I should have been, but I was in the bottom of a bottle and feeling sorry for myself.
Mm.
But by 2022, late 2021, I was really, and it kicked it up a notch. and it made me work harder. So I'm very happy for more people coming and seeing stuff on social media.
Because social media has become so powerful, and let's say TikTok is about most clips on TikTok that are successful are about 40 to 50 seconds. Reels are, maybe for you a minute, but most of it is about 40, 50 seconds. And because there is such an importance of social media in the life of a stand-up now, are there jokes now you think to yourself, I'm going to write this and perform it because it can be now made into a clip that will go viral?
No, no, I write the jokes that I want to write, and I do them on stage, and I worry about that audience. And then if it translates to social media, that's great. But if it doesn't, I don't. No, I don't do. I'm not a crowd work guy, so I don't sit there and try to invent a situation to where I can put it on. So I'm just cranking out jokes and material. That's my whole thing. I want to use the so even if I got on a sitcom or a movie or something like that, it all comes back to stand up. So
Hmm.
I want people to watch the social media so they can go, well, I want to see what that is like live because it looks like it's really fun
Hmm.
watching it on my phone. And that's my whole goal. I just want to pull people in. I don't try to. I never think it. I never know if anything's going viral. And the stuff that I think I've written that's really smart, nobody really likes it. And if I do something stupid, then they're like, "Oh my god!" And most of my videos, some of them will go viral because people will be like, "Well, crack is a hell of a drug," and then they'll argue if I'm on meth or whatever, and I'm completely sober, but I don't jump in and tell them any different. Go ahead and fight.
I think that's fantastic. That's fascinating too that you don't always know what joke is necessarily funny. Sometimes you write a joke and you do like pat yourself on the back like that's the one that's gonna that one's not gonna hit or is it I'm just you writing things out and you'll find out as you go which ones work.
Both. Sometimes you write a joke and you're like, yeah, that's because I've been doing it 32 years. I know what's going to hit and what's not going to hit. But there's sometimes I will write stuff and I'll think it's brilliant and I'll get nothing. so, so I don't have the answers to all of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, but there's sometimes I'll write a one liner and I'm like, that'll hit. They'll enjoy that. That and then you get cocky. You're like, well, I can't write anything wrong now. I'm Dale Jones. I kick butt. And then you'll go do a great humbler show and everybody's like, you suck.
When I mean, because obviously, like every comedian has failed jokes. I mean, it's part of the job, right? Someone's gonna hit, someone's gonna fail. It's just kind of how it goes. Just like a band is gonna come out with some shitty songs. It's just how it goes.
Right.
When you go up on stage and something does fail, do you always know why? Like, do you know it's because the audience was just not the right audience that day? Do you know is was a delivery issue? Do you know if whatever surrounding part of it, or do you just go it's out?
Uh, Sometimes it's just because it's the first time you're saying it in front of a crowd,
Hmm.
and you've got to get used to saying it. Sometimes it's what your first thought was the wrong direction, or your fifth thought was the wrong direction. And I don't dump something immediately. I'll play with it for, they always say you're supposed to try it 3 times and then drop it. Sometimes I will mess with it for a month, and try to word it out. And then I'll drop it eventually.
Hmm.
Sometimes I'm on stage and I'm going, you're beating this to death and it is not working. I had this one bit I wanted to do, and it was when I was a kid. They always said, adults always said, if you bragged about yourself, an adult would say, "What do you want, a cookie?" And I don't know if that was just where I grew up or anywhere else, but I did this whole thing about wanting a cookie, and I go, "Of course I want a cookie," and I just never could get it nailed right. And then I went and did a show in my hometown, and the crowd lost it, and I was like, "Okay, this is a town thing." It's just, they don't know about the cookie thing in Nebraska. So yeah, and eventually you're just like, all right, I give up. But
That,
I will beat something to death trying to make it work.
that's kind of funny because I think it was on Monday. I was talking to my boss because, like I said, I was a teacher, and she gave me a sticker, and I put it on my shirt because, and the kids asked me like, "What's the sticker for?" I was like, "I earned it." It's like I earned my damn sticker. I
I
don't care
think that's
how old you are,
awesome.
a sticker or a cookie. There's something validating about a sticker or a cookie.
Yes, yes, exactly. But when the adults used to say it to me, it was an insult. What do you want, Dale? A cookie? Quit bragging about yourself. So my whole gist on it was, when I was a kid, self-esteem was illegal. And if you bragged about yourself, they go, "What do you want, a cookie?" Yeah,
But
yeah.
like I said, but it's still a funny joke because, like I said, I know I've heard that here, where I'm from. It's the same that says maybe that's, are you from the Northeast or?
I grew up in southern part of Illinois, near
Oh, okay.
so I was probably an hour and a half outside of St. Louis, Missouri, and then I started doing stand up in Nashville, Tennessee, and then just
Hmm.
mostly bounced around the South. I was out west, LA, for about 7 years,
You gotta come
but
up north. You gotta come northeast at some point.
I do love working out. I used to work northeast. Let's see, north. Yeah, so New York State. I did a lot of stuff there. I'd love to go up to Rhode Island. I did some
Oh,
stuff there.
oh, you did? You've done Rhode Island?
I did that. There was a comedy zone up there that was in a movie theater, and I was the opening comedian that opened that room up.
Yeah.
And I got to see where the Great White Fire, what not to bring everything down, but the Great White Fire was, and I got to see that, and yeah. So I mean, I'll go anywhere if there's a bag of money. I'll try to get there.
So I'm gonna read another joke of yours. I'm gonna obviously ruin it in the translation, but it's about a bit about you only being baptized once, and they had me underwater every week, but I thought that was so funny, and I think and the interesting thing about constructing that joke is that it's a very simple premise that then but the turn makes it work. That nice turn when you go they did every week. So like, how are you? Did the turn come first, or is it the joke itself at the end that came first, or just a concept?
I was writing a whole thing on that about I'm not allowed in my church. And how and the truth of that is I was in a youth group, and I was 14 or 15, and I was a pain in the butt. I ran around in circles. So I channeled on that and was just like, well, what if you were getting, and I remember getting baptized, and I waved at the crowd, and they told me I was an idiot. And then it just all flowed, that just kind of all flowed out. Um, that I remember that specifically. They had me underwater every week. Yeah. Yeah. I just, and I get these pictures in my head of what if I was the other person, what would I do? And I was in my head going, well, I'd shove them under and just count the bubbles. And so I try to draw, if I always try to draw the picture in my head, in the crowd's head. So I'm constantly trying to, so they can see it. You know, I want them to laugh at the joke, but I also want them to see some dude going, "Ugh," that just tickles me. So,
I was looking at that joke. And I was like, well, see, that's just like a golden joke. And I thought I think you did a fantastic job with that one. I think that you mentioned earlier that's kind of interesting. You said your wife is also a stand-up comedian. Is that competitive? I mean, is that like, or you know, who's doing better at any given time? I mean, is it impossible to avoid the competitive nature of both be doing the same type of job?
um, well, I've been doing it about 15 years more than her, but I could see with some comics it is competitive, but with me and her, it's not
Hmm.
because her style is so much different than mine. And she's more just a straight monologist, and I'm more of a doing a character thing. So we will. I can't write for her because every time I do, she tells me I'm dailing it up because I immediately go to Goofy. Um, but she will write lines for me, and all the money goes in the same bank account, so we're always happy for each other.
Uh,
And also, like if she ever got a sitcom or I did, we would obviously be both involved in it.
hmm.
So but we actually like each other. If I was married to a comic that I didn't like, then it would be very competitive.
The other thing too, is there a difference between what you do when you're an open act versus you're being the main act? Like when you know who you're, if you're ever doing an opening act, I don't know if you still do open or you're always the lead. Um,
Right?
do you think to yourself? this is who that comedian or jokes that he tells. So I got to make sure I'm talking to the same audience that he's talking to or she's talking to, or is it like every comedian for themselves?
I'm a big fan of every comedian for themselves. And being as the headliner, I enjoy that because it makes me watch every show. It makes me change lines. It makes me work, and go, oh, well, that person said this word. Well, I got to make sure I don't do that. And usually I end up making my material better because I hear what's out there.
Mm.
And I'll be like, oh, well, I gotta up it, you know.
Yeah.
I have heard the speech several times, which is probably why people didn't take me on the road, where they were like, hey, could you dial it down a chunk? Could you do this? Could you dial it down? Could you not say these jokes because I do these jokes? And I am a big fan of I don't tell what other comedians what to do. That's not my job. My job is to be a last. I don't even call myself the headliner. I go, I'm last.
When, when, when,
And
when,
I just want comics to do whatever they do. You do whatever you want. It is the booker's fault if they put a dirty comedian in front of me or something like that. And it's my job to follow that comedian.
it,
And that's what I do.
I mean,
That's what I try to do.
as a headliner, do you want a good opener or a bad opener? Like, because I'm saying it's a bad opener, you're also gonna be funny by comparison. Someone who's not an opener for you when you're a headliner that's not funny, is it or less funny? Does that help you because now you're gonna come off even more funny, or is it if it's a really good headliner, they got the ball rolling for you already?
No, I want somebody that's funny and gets the ball rolling. I don't want the crowd bored, and I don't want to dig out of a hole.
Mm.
Um, no, and I also want somebody that makes me work too. Yeah, I definitely would want somebody funnier in front of me instead of eating a sandwich for 30 minutes. That's always because then the crowd's like, all right, you know, or they'll come up later and go, well, we're glad you saved the show because that just puts more pressure on you after you've sat there for 30 minutes and goes, this stinks. I want them having fun and in a good mood. And then I hit the stage and go from there. It's supposed to all tear up, not be down in the valley and go, okay, I'm going to get my shovel.
So, so when do you know when you have enough to put together a special? When is it going to be your next special?
I've already shot my next special, and it was the producers got into it, and they took them a year to get it editing, and now they finally figured it out, and we're on the finish it editing right now. In fact, they're picking the music for the credits to roll the whatever the free music we can get to roll during the credits. So that special would be coming out hopefully within the next 6 months or so. I don't know how long it takes to sell a special. I don't know anything about that. They're going to go knock on Netflix and Hulu and Amazon and Tubi. I don't care. I'll put it on my phone and just take it to people's house and show it to them.
Hmm.
But as far as knowing when the next special is, or when it's ready, I when it's 50 minutes to an hour of solid stuff. I mean, that's when I know I'm ready. When everything is as solid as I like it, where everything's just bam, bam, bam. I set my I was told this a long time ago, and I've kind of ran with it. I set my jokes up like a baseball diamond. So I'm on home base, and I hit it, and the punchline is either you pick first, second, or third, and I try to go for the parking lot. So every joke, I'm just trying to, and I know that's really high standards, but that's just how and I obviously I don't always hit that, but I want solid laughs. I don't count how many punchlines I have, but I try to fill all the spaces in with punchlines as much as I can
Hmm.
and make them tired by 45 to 50.
So, is your current tour dates on your website?
Yes, yes. You go to dalejonescomic.com and they got the three lines on the thing, calendar page. Yeah.
So, for those who are listening, go to the show notes. We'll make sure we attach your website to the show notes so they can find your tour dates. At some point, please find your way to Rhode Island. Mr. Jones, you've been absolutely fantastic.
Well, thank you very much. I hope we get to meet and hang out sometime. That'd be great.
That'd be awesome. Like I said, you got to come to Rhode Island then.
Okay.
We still have a few good places for stand up in there. I think we have a Comedy Connection. I think is
Okay.
here and a couple of others. But either way, hope to see you.
Yeah. I hope to see you too, brother. Thank you. Hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Definitely have a great night, sir.
All right, later on.